video has been created in partnership with LloydsPharmacy, and I am Rhiannon Lambert, registered nutritionist working with Lloyds as their nutritionist for the year. And today's video is going to cover food and mood, some of my favourite foods and what they can do to help with this. And we're going to be discussing some of the 3 key nutrients that everybody needs in their diet. Now, there is a huge link between what we eat and how it makes us feel. I mean, it makes sense, right? But it is heavily researched. And in fact, one of the areas that is researched is the Mediterranean diet. And we know that consuming this type of diet can reduce the rates of depression, which is so interesting because the Med diet is actually very similar to the Eat Well plate in the UK, but it does have a few key elements that we really should all be aiming to do, and that is cooking more with things like olive oil, having more nuts, seeds, pulses within our diets, more whole grain fibres, having fish, for instance, 2 portions a week, one of which that's oily. But if you don't eat fish, don't worry, because we're going to be discussing soon the elements that you can eat to get within your diet. Now, the Mediterranean diet has a lot of colour, flavours, and is very rich in something called polyphenols as well, because of the amount of colour they have in their diet. Now, polyphenols are a type of antioxidant. You've probably heard that word. They help defend our body from things that we don't really want in there and protect our cells. So you get these with a wide variety of colour. Eating the rainbow is an essential part of the Mediterranean diet and a healthy diet in general that a nutritionist would recommend to you. And some of my favourite polyphenol containing foods are berries. I love berries, especially the dark colours, those blackberries when they're in season, the blueberries, even strawberries and raspberries contain polyphenols, and things that you probably do every day that you don't realise. If you add things like dried rosemary or cloves, basically herbs and spices to your foods, that's another wonderful source of polyphenols. Now, there's some research that this part of polyphenol can help with our brains. So if you consume a lot of these foods, you might be helping a part of your brain called the hippocampus, which can help create our memories, keeping it a good size, preventing it from shrinking, and also enabling all the signals that happen in our brain to stay active. And these signaling things that we need are called neurons. And if we don't get enough of these polyphenols, we can get more damage to them within the brain. So food and mood is so interlinked, and a lot of this is also down to our gut-brain axis. So the food that we eat, I've mentioned the Mediterranean diet with our whole grains, our polyphenols. We want these things because they feed all the bacteria that live within our gut. Now, our gut microbiota, which is the word for all of that bacteria, helps create around 95% of our serotonin. Serotonin is our happy hormone. That is our food and mood. It's one of the biggest links that we can create, is that the diet we eat has a knock-on effect on our gut bacteria, which then gets active and digests the food that we eat and helps create the serotonin. Now, there's also an element we can get from eating food as well directly, and that is if we eat carbohydrates and proteins combined, we are more likely to be able to enable serotonin to get to where it needs to do its job. So there is a huge link between fibre consumption, getting the gut foods in there, prebiotic foods, probiotic foods, which means living bacteria that we're ingesting in things like Greek yogurt, or which is another part of the Mediterranean diet, or of course prebiotics, which means all the different fibres that we can put into our gut. So food and mood, there's definitely a connection. Now, of course, it's really important to eat all the food to get the nutrients we need, but in some cases that isn't always possible. And there is an argument for including supplements within the diet to make sure we all get those vitamins and minerals that we need. Now, there's a lot of confusing jargon out there when it comes to the supplement industry, and as a nutritionist I'm working with LloydsPharmacy, and they've just brought out their new range, Nutri Within, and I would like to really discuss with you 3 key nutrients that everybody really needs to include within their diet. And let's start with omega-3. Now, it's a big part of the Mediterranean diet that we've already discussed, and I think it's so crucial to understand that it plays a role in our brain health. It creates the outer surface, the protective part of our cells, something called a cell membrane. It helps with our heart health. Omega-3 is incredibly important, and you can only really get it in the most bioavailable form, which means more accessible to us to absorb from oily fish. Now, a lot of people don't eat enough fish in the UK, let alone get a portion of oily fish a week, which is where a supplement may come in very handy, an omega-3 supplement. And if you don't eat fish or you don't wish to consume fish, then you don't need to worry, because you can get omega-3 from an algae source, which is a vegan source of omega-3. The fish eat the algae, and that is the part that contains the goodness that you require. Omega-3 is also linked to our happiness. It's also linked to protecting our brain and potentially neurodegenerative diseases. So very key part of the diet to include that. Now let's discuss another key vitamin, and that's vitamin B12. It plays a role with the DNA inside our cells, plays a role with our nervous system, our energy metabolism, and you need it to prevent a form of anemia, which you really don't want to be getting, and that is called megablastic anemia. A lot of people just think anemia comes from iron, but you can also get it from a B12 deficiency as well. Now, the key to B12 and why it's so important is that you need to get it in the diet. It is water soluble, and that means that it can be peed out easily if you get too much of the vitamin as well. So in terms of taking a supplement, you will need to be taking this if you're not consuming enough animal products each week. A lot of vegans will be needing to supplement with B12, and if you just switch to a plant-based lifestyle but you're not really including enough animal produce, because that's the only place you can find B12 is from animal produce like fish, meat, eggs, yogurt, dairy, essentially, that is why you will be needing to take this vitamin to prevent a deficiency and to make sure you're optimally healthy. Vitamin D is another vitamin that actually everybody, regardless of their dietary choices, should be taking, especially in the UK. We have advice from the UK government that from the autumn to spring months of the year, so around late September, October time, potentially all the way through to April, I would say, depending on what the weather is like, we need to be taking around 10 micrograms of vitamin D. And that is because we have a lot of research now to suggest that most people are deficient. And this plays a role with our teeth, with our bones, with our immune system, keeping us healthy, making sure we don't get sick as often. So it's a crucial part to include in the diet. And the only dietary forms that you can get are again from animal products, just as I've discussed with B12, things like fish with bones like sardines, some fortified foods, some fortified dairy, things like eggs. But unfortunately, it's hard still to get enough. Now, there is one fascinating food that you could consume if you're plant-based. If you leave mushrooms with the gills faced up towards the sun, they can absorb vitamin D and you can consume it that way. But remember, everybody should be taking a supplement from the autumn to spring every year. So it's probably worth checking out the NutriWithin range over on LloydsPharmacy, where you can see those key nutrients that I've just discussed today, vitamin D, B12, omega-3, and of course you can head online to their website or their social channels to get more expert content like this video here to help you learn more and enable you to be the happiest and healthiest versions of yourselves.